I went to school with a lot of my cousins' kids, and their parents were my cousins. My grandfather was born in 1848, and my dad was born in 1893, and my grandfather was 45 when my dad was born, and I was 43 or my dad was 44 when I was born, so that puts me not very far from my grandfather walked across the plains in 1856. We had some cows, and we had a hayfield, and we put an electric fence. My dad built an electric fence to keep the cows out of the hayfield, and I'm this brilliant thinker again. I asked my dad, how come the birds don't get shocked when they land on the electric fence? Because I'd seen the cows and horses touch it, and boy, they only touch it once. Birds land on it. Fly. He said, well, they're not grounded. Well, what do you mean they're not grounded? Well, they're not touching the ground. So I was riding a horse one day, bareback. My dad was working in the field, and I ride up to the electric fence, and I'm sitting on the horse, and looking down at the electric fence right beside of the horse, and the horse was grazing. I run this through my mind. Now, I'm not grounded, so I can touch the fence. So I stick my foot over on the electric fence. I learned what grounded meant. A horse jumps right out from under me. So I learned about what grounded meant. But I remember thinking, oh, I'm not grounded, so it can't shock me. It doesn't shock the birds. I was in high school. I played football, basketball, and track. When I was on the basketball team, you had to try out for the basketball team. I was quite sure I could make the team, but you never really know. And my neighbor was my mutual teacher. I can't remember, Boy Scouts. And they had a basketball team league in the town, the local towns, and the high school. If you was on the high school team, you couldn't play on the on the town team. So Ray asked me if I was going to play basketball with the team. I said, well, I'm trying out for a high school team, and I can't play. Well, we need to know by tomorrow night. We were still trying out, and I was still not sure. So Ray says, well, I'll check it out. So Celia mentioned party line telephones. So Ray was on the same line we were on. So you could pick up, and you had to pick the phone up to see if anybody was using it before you dialed. So I knew Ray was going to call the coach and find out. So I waited I was home alone. My mother wouldn't have let me do this. So I waited about a minute, and I put my hand got a towel, put it over the receiver, and picked up the phone real quietly, and Ray's talking to the coach, and he's asking him, and he said that I was going to make the team. So there was still a week or 10 days of tryouts, so I was in heaven because I knew I was going to make the team. I was the only one there, and I didn't make the basketball team, but that's how I found out earlier that I was going to make the team, was through the party line phone that I was not supposed to be listening in. But when I was in high school, somebody had met a couple of girls from Pleasant Grove, and we decided we'd go see them. Well, when do we go? Well, let's go tomorrow. Well, tomorrow's Thursday. We got school. Well, let's skip school. So there's four of us decided we'd skip school tomorrow and go to Pleasant Grove and see these girls. And I got worried about it, so I told my mother, I said, well, I want to what we were going to do. And she says, well, you better stay in school. Well, they're going to go. Okay, says, all right, you give it to Uncle Gib. Uncle Gib was my dad's brother. He was the principal. But I didn't give it to Uncle Gib. So we went to Pleasant Grove and found the girls and talked to them and went home. Well, the next day, Uncle Gib called us all in, one at a time. And I told him my story, that I had told my parents that I was going to do that, and I had a note, and I still had the note in my pocket. He said, I want to see the note. I still had it, so I showed it to him. All the other kids got expelled from school, but I didn't. And I'm sure it was because of Uncle Gib. That's what the other kids thought, but he says, well, if you told your parents, why? And I had the note from my mother, so. But I didn't the other kids got expelled for a week of school, and I kind of felt guilty that I didn't get expelled. Anyway, we had a fairly successful high school basketball team. I got the mumps when I was a senior and missed 4 games of school, and because I was out of school, I had two games a week, and I got the mumps. And, I went back to school, and the coach got the mumps. So I'm sure he got them from me, but then I got them from someplace too. But I graduated from school in 1955, and I was a bunch of good kids, and we had a reunion every 5 years for about 20 or 30 years, and we decided when they started dying off that we better have them every year. So for several years, we had a class reunion every year. Celia got to know a lot of my classmates through that. Last year, the reunion was canceled because we all couldn't find drivers to go, but I expect sometime this summer we'll get together. There was 36 kids in my graduating class, and there's still about 12 or 13 of them still alive, and we meet annually and go over old times and have a lot of fun. Well, I graduated from college, and I was going to go to Utah State, and sent in all the papers. It was a little different then. If you wanted to go to college, you just showed up. And about a week before school, one of my good friends, and he had a car, says, why don't you come go to BYU with me? Says, I've got a car, we can come back and forth from home. And that sounds like a good plan, because Utah State was a long ways away. And Provo was only about an hour away from Utah State was at least 2 hours away, so that was a long ways away from home, and I wasn't sure I wanted to be that far away from home. So a week before school, my mother and sister went to Provo, enrolled me at BYU, found me a place to stay, and I ended up going to BYU. Well, I wasn't sure what I was going to study at BYU, but I graduated with a degree in agronomy and a minor in botany. They were along the lines I was interested in, but the thing that probably kept me in school, my mother used to say she had 4 kids. Well, actually I had 6. I had 2 brothers that died. 4 kids. He says, of all my kids, you're the last one I would expect to graduate from college, and I'm the only one that did. I was more interested in having fun than I was school. I'm lucky I made it through BYU, but the thing that kept me in college was the Army. At that time, every male You had to register for the draft, and this was right after World War II, and Korea was just before when I was a junior in high school. Every male had to register for the draft, and if you weren't married or in school, you got drafted in the Army. So as long as I was in school, I was safe. Well, I graduated in 1960 from BYU. I should have graduated in 59, but I was a couple hours short. I had to take a literature class or something. So I went back to BYU in the spring of 1960. My birthday is the 14th of March. For my birthday, I bought a brand new Ford car. Cost $2,800, the most expensive Starliner, Ford Starliner, white, most expensive Ford car that Ford made. I bought it, went to BYU with this new car, and I took 10 hours, I think that was the minimum. And I only had to pass one class to graduate, so I mostly just played down there. I parked at the faculty parking lot, got several tickets. And, there was if you didn't pay your tickets within, I don't know, a month's time, why, they held up your grades. So I calculated I'm going to be graduated. I'll be in 29 days, so I can park in the faculty parking lot. I had enough tickets to, and we go through the graduation ceremony, and one of my friends was sitting in the row right in front of me, and we went around, and he came back, and he opened up his diploma, and it says, he was from Arizona, it says, you can pick up your diploma Monday morning upon payment of your traffic tickets. Well, I was plenty nervous, but my tickets hadn't caught up with the system yet, so I got my diploma with those parking tickets. And years later, our neighbor, I needed a transcript, and they wouldn't give me a transcript. But our neighbor, who was about a little older than Sharon, worked for BYU in that department. He says, I'll take care of it. So she ripped out the hold on my transcript, and I got my transcript. I probably shouldn't tell that story, but I got my diploma and my transcript. So, but I was more interested in having fun than I was. Like I said, I'm lucky I made it through college, but I did, and graduated in 1960, and of course, still had this six-year obligation that every young man had. And I came home. I was hauling timber for my cousin from Camas, from up in the mountains above Camas to Kennecott. They called them converters. They hauled the logs down there, and they'd dip them in the molten copper, and that would consume the oxygen out of this, so there was no bubbles in the cured copper. Anyway, I was doing that for a summer job. I got paid $20 a day, which was more than any of my friends made, but I was working 12, 15 hours a day to make that round trip every day and go to the mountains.